I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. In this episode, I talked to Leke and Marielos Lewu from Miami, Florida. They lead an 80-student campus ministry focused on Florida International University and the University of Miami. Listen as they talk about how they consistently have 25 baptisms every year, their ministry philosophy, and their 5 F's: how to reach student athletes, how to integrate a ministry of kingdom kids and those without a church background, how they stay inspired after years of campus ministry, what Marielos learned from getting her master's degree, their dreams to send out 50 missionaries in 10 years, and using athletics to impact underserved kids, and finally their today list to make each day count. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Thanks for listening to the Rob Skinner Podcast. If you're enjoying the content, please support the Rob Skinner Podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/Rob Skinner. That's patreon.com/Rob Skinner. Thank you, and make this life count. This has been such an exciting time on campus. We're a couple weeks into the semester at the University of Arizona. Kevin and Erica Liu are doing an awesome job reaching out, and it's been so thrilling to see so many students come out to church and studies going on. It was such a busy week in terms of Bible studies, at least a couple every day, and it's amazing to see the response of students. And one of the things that I felt really strongly about coming out of the World Discipleship Summit is I wanted to interview leaders who are making a difference on campus, both to learn from them personally and also to be able to share what are those people doing who are making a difference on campuses around the world. And one of the people I talked to is Kyle Plum. I had a great talk with him and interviewed him a couple episodes ago. But another person I bumped into was Leke Lewu. And Leke, I have never met him before, but in May, I went to Georgia for a campus training program, and there were a ton of students from the Miami area, which is where he's from, and it was really awesome because those students were really fired up. They were, you could just tell they were really thrilled about being there. It wasn't like they were obligated; they were like pumped up. And I just thought to myself, I made a mental note, I need to talk to this guy Leke and his wife Marielos to find out what are they doing down there, because there was something special happening. And so luckily I knew Marielos from, she's actually from Arizona, so I knew her when she was up in Phoenix, which is only a couple hours away, and so they recently got married. So I bumped into him and I said, hey, listen, do you think you'd come on the program? And they were kind enough to say yes. And so Leke and Marielos, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited.
It's an honor.
I know. It is fantastic to have you guys. How'd you guys become Christians?
So yeah, I can start. I became a Christian in Arizona. I actually grew up in Phoenix. And for a very young age, I started going to church. My mom was a Christian. Around age 9, I saw our lives really change when she decided to follow Jesus. And I saw in her life, she just had a peace to her, and she had a way of forgiving and living a life that seemed so free, with so many hardships that happened in our life. And so that whatever it was that she had, it made me be drawn to whoever this Jesus was that she was following, because I didn't really know Jesus too well. I think I grew up hearing different stories. And when you go to church, a lot of times you're there because your parents are bringing you there. But there's a point where I think I just decided, well, I want to figure out whatever it is that my mom believes in. And I kind of saw both sides of that world of my mom following Jesus and my dad wasn't. I saw the effects of both. And so I was actually going off to college. It was the summer before my freshman year of college. And I decided to really get serious about figuring out what it was that I wanted to do with my life, and specifically with God. And so sat down, studied the Bible or Allie Barnes studied the Bible with me. And she was just an amazing friend. And she really showed me the scriptures. And I was just blown away that the scriptures actually said all of these incredible things that I wanted for my life. And I wanted to be able to have that relationship that it describes in scripture. But I didn't know how, and somebody just showing me, hey, this is the way. It was just incredible. And I think what really got me was when we studied out grace and the cross, and I was just, that was a moment where I was like, wow, I need God. It really brought me to my knees, because we talked about how sin is equal. It doesn't matter if it's my sin or if it's somebody else's sin. And there's a lot of hurts that I had in my life because of sin, because of other people's sin. And I felt what I had done was unforgivable. It had hurt me so bad. And when I realized that all sin was equal, it was like, wow, my sin is just as bad. That was humbling, and it made me desperate for God's grace. And so going into my freshman year, I decided to make Jesus Lord, got baptized November 21st, 2010.
2010. Let's go.
It's been a while. So yeah, and there's a lot of bumps in the road after that. I still had to figure out what it meant to have convictions living in a college life, in a college campus, and unfortunately made many mistakes, and had to learn a lot quickly about what that meant. But I'm grateful. I'm here now and faithful, and God has really showed me a lot of grace in my life.
That's cool. So you really got to see like the divergence between where your mom was at and where your dad was at. You got to see the power of the gospel in people's lives. Yeah,
and I saw the effects that it could have if you follow Jesus's way. Like it really was brought to life when I saw my mom's life.
That's awesome. That takes a lot of courage. How about you, Leke?
Yeah, so I am Nigerian. There are a lot of Nigerians are religious. And so I grew up, my dad's Catholic. My mom went to a Pentecostal Nigerian Christian church. And so I kind of grew up knowing a little bit about Jesus, and always knowing that, he was the way in a sense. But it wasn't until maybe middle school that my uncle came down from Texas, and come on, Texas. And he read the Bible and prayed before I went to school. And he asked me if I wanted to join him. And I started doing that. And it kind of blew my mind that he actually had a relationship with God. And I was inspired by that. And in middle school, they had us read 10 minutes before each class. So I started reading this book called The Book of Hope. And it was basically the book of John for seventh graders. They had nice writing and all these cool, Jesus walked on water. Wow. And I was enamored. It was cool. And kind of grew up just kind of amazed by Jesus. I went to church and in high school, but high school is also where I kind of moved away from living a pure life as I thought, and going into college, I challenged myself my freshman year to read the entire Bible.
Wow.
And I did. And then my sophomore year, but I was living in a lot of sin. It was more of a challenge and more of a task. And my sophomore year, same thing. I was an athlete. I played at Daytona State College. I played basketball, and all the athletes lived on the same block. So we were doing it, man. In many different ways. We were going to the clubs and so on and so forth. But we still went to church. Some of the athletes went to church on Sunday, club on Saturday, church on Sunday. And my sophomore year, one of my friends, well, now he's my friend, Zach Conroy, reached out to my teammate. And my teammate said, I'm not really interested, but maybe, Leke might be interested. He and some of the teammates go to church. So Zach came up to me and he's like, hey, are you Leke? And I was like, how do you even know my name? Like, who are you? So he reached out to me, said, hey, we're going to have a 15-minute Bible discussion. Love for you to come out. And I did. And I thought, oh, look at these little Christians doing the Christian thing. It's cute. But then I went 2 or 3 times. And after that, the guy, Ari Rodriguez and Zach Conroy, they asked me to study the Bible. And I looked at them and I thought, what are these guys going to teach me that I don't already know? I already read the Bible, although I wasn't living it. And I thought, man, well, I fear God, so maybe they could teach me something. And I remember the first Bible study, we talked about how the word of God must be the standard of our lives. And it blew my mind. I was looking at different scriptures that they showed me, and I was like, guys, the word is talking about the word. This is amazing. How do you guys know your scriptures? This is cool. I read the entire Bible and I never saw it this way. And I remember our second Bible study, we talked about being a disciple, and I knew, man, I'm definitely not a disciple. So I grew up going to a church, different churches, and they taught about the sinner's prayer and all these different things. And I was shocked when I learned about repentance and baptism and so on and so forth. So I actually took a step back and studied the scriptures a little bit deeper, because I was shocked that so many people weren't teaching sound biblical doctrine. And so it took me an extra month. So I turned 21 May 4th, 2010. And instead of turning up, I turned my life to Jesus 2 days later, which was May 6th, 2010. And that's the day I got dunked. I didn't even bring extra clothes. I was so happy. And we went to Steak and Shake afterwards, and I was all wet. And,
that reminds me of Tom Brown. I think Tom Brown got baptized in a full suit and just had his wallet in his back pocket. I mean, it's a cool story. That's awesome. It's a great picture. Now, let me ask you this. So you're Nigerian. You had mentioned in a pre-interview that you were born in Japan. Sounds like you've traveled quite a bit.
Yeah, so my dad's a diplomat, Nigerian diplomat. He was an ambassador in Brazil, and he was under the ambassador in Japan. So my family moved from the UK, where my older sisters were born, and then they went to Japan, and me and my younger sister were born in Japan, and I only lived there for about 2 years, so I only know 1 through 10.
That's impressive.
Come on. And then after that, we moved to Brazil, and I lived in Brazil for about 5-6 years. I speak Portuguese. Vamos lá, Brasil. And so I lived in Brazil for about 5-6 years. My dad was an ambassador. It was awesome. We had the embassy house. We had drivers. We had maids. It was a spoiled life. We had an Olympic-sized pool. It was incredible. So sometimes people ask me, how was Brazil? And I'm like, how do you answer that question?
Right.
Because I wasn't living a normal Brazilian life. So it depends. But Brazil's great, dear to my heart in many ways. And then we came to the States, and I lived here, South Florida, most of my life.
Got it. Okay. So that explains, like, you don't have any accent. I mean, you have dual citizenship, I'm assuming. You've got U.S. plus Nigerian citizenship.
So I'm straight Nigerian, but I'm about to be an American citizen. Got it. Soon, very soon. Yeah.
Are your parents in the States, or are they back in Nigeria?
So my dad actually lives in Nigeria. After we came to the States, he did a fellowship at Harvard. So he was in Boston for some time, and then he worked for the UN for a little bit with peacekeeping in Sierra Leone. And then he went back to Nigeria because he and his brother own a farm, and it's a large plot of land. And so he's working it, and he's retired. But my mom lives in South Florida, and she's a nurse. She's awesome.
Got it. That's awesome. Okay. So tell me how you guys got together.
Well, she got lucky, and I'm just kidding. Oh, you could go for it, Maddie.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. We had some friends, there was a guy that I was working with in the campus ministry, Willie Price in Arizona, who told me about this guy, Leke in Miami. He's like, this guy is awesome. I think you guys would hit it off. And I was not really about it. I was like, I don't really want to be set up. That's weird. I'll just meet this guy at the next conference we have. So I told Willie, like, no, we'll just wait. And Willie went behind my back anyway, did it, and reached out to Leke and told Leke, hey, there's a sister in Arizona. I think you guys would hit it off, so on and so forth. And actually that very same week, there was a sister who had moved from Phoenix and now lived in Miami, that she had been there about 7 years at that point, who thought of me and decided to ask Leke, hey, I think you should reach out to this sister, Marielos, in Arizona. And it was the same week, and these two people did not know that they were doing the same thing, trying to set us up. And so it was really clear, I think, that God wanted us to talk, whatever that looked like. So then Leke reached out to me. He sent me a cheesy text, and we had like a phone call, and we kind of started talking from there. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, and it was crazy because I was on a prayer walk prior to our call, and I just thought, Willie contacted me that same week. Another sister contacted me about Madi, and I thought, God, I pray this, talk goes great, so on and so forth. And after the conversation, we spoke for about an hour, and afterwards I was like shocked. I was like, man, this girl is awesome. We baptized the same year and kind of did ministry sort of around the same year. We love being athletic. I say that because it's different. She loves going to the gym.
Likes to play basketball.
I like playing basketball. That's my gym. I say I'm gonna go work out, but then I just really go play basketball. But yeah, so I was shocked, and I know people put their best foot forward. So I was like, I don't know if this girl's even real, So we actually met at CTP. Which is a training program that you were talking about in Georgia. And I took her out on a couple dates there. That was fun. And I still wasn't convinced because I dated before, and we only dated for 2 months. And so that was kind of funny and embarrassing. And the campus minister dated only 2 months. So I was like, I don't know if I want to just dive into another relationship and it not go amazing, especially long distance. So she was in Arizona, I was still in Florida, and I'm still in Florida. But yeah, I just went to Arizona to see her and with her friends and so on and so forth. And that's the rest is history. I was like, wow, this girl is amazing. And I'd love for her to come down to Florida, see my friends and so on and so forth. And she did. And one of those trips, I asked her to be my girlfriend.
You guys are a great example, a successful example of a long distance dating relationship. Any tips to those who are looking to find Mr. Right or Miss Right?
Mr. Right, Mrs. Right. Yeah, well, long distance isn't easy at all. I think we learned a lot through the process. I think some of the things that made it successful, I guess, in our case, is that we really got to know each other's circle of people.
Yeah.
I think it helps because you're not in each other's lives the way you would if you were in the same city. And so if you know the people around them, you kind of know them better. You know the fruits. You can talk to the people in their lives and ask questions and get clarification when you don't understand or can't communicate well. So I think it's really helpful to know each other's people. And we spent a lot of time, I think, like just FaceTiming. We would try to fly back and forth each and every month, switch back and forth every month. So he would go to Arizona and then I would come to Miami. We'd go back and forth. And I think that helped to see each other, at least in each other's environments. But really, I mean, I think the thing that helped us the most was having people in our lives that knew each other and that we could just get clarification and understanding. And there's a security in that because the people in your life is a big reflection of who you are. So I think it helped me trust when I was moving to Florida that one, I know Leke has people that I can turn to and kind of get support from, but that I can also have those people in my life as well.
Yeah. And I mean, to that too, there would be times where we talk and miscommunicate, and I would just call one of her friends and they'd be like, so this is what she's feeling. So this is what you could do. And I was like, oh man, thank God for Christians. So that was really helpful. One of the things that maybe that, I don't know, maybe this is a little thing, but every other month, my bank account was $300. I had an extra 300 in there. So every other month I had to fly out. And so I had to be mindful about finances, about when I'm going, about my finances there, and figuring out different ways to encourage her, even while I was here.
Right.
So for her birthday and, different events or whatever, I would call her and be like, hey, do you want to have lunch? And she's like, yeah, let me just prepare lunch. And it's like, no, go outside. There's lunch for you. So I did like monthly letters, which I should probably really start up doing again as a married man. But I did monthly little letters like month one, and I would just try to encourage her.
Are you talking about traditional letters, snail mail?
Yeah, but really email.
Okay.
More email than anything.
They're really cute.
And I would also write some letters to her mom. So if you know her mom, she's a Christian or not, just make sure that you woo her mother.
Her over.
Yeah. So, which I should probably start doing again.
Wow, awesome. Okay, so you guys got married. When did you guys get married?
We actually got married in the middle of the pandemic. So we got engaged in February and then got married in June 2020.
Okay, so you guys got married, and you've got a cute little kid named Micah, little boy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, okay. Let's just change channels here a little bit. Like I mentioned, I went to that campus training program, CTP, in Georgia. And I was impressed by your people. I mean, I was impressed by the joy, the enthusiasm. There seemed to be a brightness, a happiness there, which was really refreshing to see that. What's going on in your ministry? What are you doing to build that kind of culture?
Yeah. Well, thank you, bro. You can go.
No, I was just going to say, I think that was the thing. So when I met Leke, I met his ministry at the same time when we met in person. And that I said almost the exact same words, Rob. I felt like there's something different about the ministry that he was pouring into. And so there is definitely a joy and I would say a fun culture that is built that Leke has done a really good job. That you can share a little bit what you've been doing.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of, but I think because we have a lot of young Christians, they come from the world, and the world seems so appealing. So we talk a lot about having fun as a ministry, and we have a lot of fun events and so on and so forth. But we also talk about having deep convictions. And I think the newness of things and the excitement to, wow, this is new, I love Jesus, and this is pure fun. I think all of that we really try to elevate in our ministry, and talk a lot about encouragement. I did a whole study on Luke 7, how Jesus just continues to lift people up. He lifts up the centurion, he lifts up John the Baptist, he lifts up the sinful woman. And so that's the different, we did a whole series on the book of Luke, and there were 2 or 3 or 4 lessons that we talked about encouragement and the joy that we have in being part of the body. So it's been fun. It's a blessing.
Okay. So give us a picture of your ministry. How many people in your ministry, how many people are you baptizing, pre-COVID and then through COVID? Just kind of flesh out your ministry a little bit, and what campuses are you working on?
Yeah, so we fluctuated from about 40 disciples to 80 disciples. We were, each semester we're about 60, and then we'll graduate a bunch. Last semester we were 80, and then we graduated, and some moved on to this, singles or young professionals ministry, got married, so on and so forth. So now we're about 60 plus disciples, and we usually baptize around 25 on average a year, maybe about 12 to 15 during the fall semester, 10 during spring, and 2 or 3 sprinkled during the summer. And yeah, so we were about 80, and now we're about 60, which 60 plus. So that excites me, because I'm like, man, another, if we don't see people become Christians, now we're just gonna kind of continue to diminish, I guess, in numbers. But so it's exciting to me. Sometimes in the past I was like, oh man, we just got to the 60 mark, and we want to help more people love Jesus and become Christians, and we want to have this great critical mass, and so on and so forth. And now we're at 40. But I just thought, man, that's exciting to me now, because we could get back on the horse and go after it and be bold, and not just be stale,
right,
or stagnant.
So how big is the Miami church that you're a part of?
So we're about 450 disciples.
Okay, so that makes sense. You got about 450 disciples. 80 would be about 20% of the larger population, and that seems to be, in my mind, I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, what is the right size for campus ministry to be? I mean, this is something I talked about at the World Discipleship Summit. I talked to the small church leaders. Is if you have a campus ministry in your city, try to get it to at least 20% of your church size, because of, I mean, a number of different reasons. Future leadership, trying to maintain a youthfulness in your ministry, because our family of churches are aging. But that seems like a great number. I mean, not that there's a perfect number, but that's pretty awesome. Okay, so let's get back to it. So which campuses are you working on?
So we are mainly at FIU, which is Florida International University, which is a really unique university. It's kind of cool. Since it's international, we get a lot of Caribbean students, a lot of students from South America, Latin America. It's a good mix. And then Miami in itself has that mix. So right, you kind of see a lot of culture coming through that campus. And that in itself brings a lot of just fun, being able to experience different cultures like that. And then we also are at the University of Miami, the U.
The U.
So we actually, that ministry has been fluctuated up and down throughout the years. But about 2 years ago, Leke and I actually walked the campus one night, and we were just praying that we could have some disciples on that campus. So we actually prayed specifically for some athletes, and God blessed us, because a disciple from LA moved to the U to play volleyball. She was on the women's team, and she was kind of the spark that started us replanting that university. And we've seen about 10 baptisms there during COVID, during that COVID season, which is really awesome. So it's grown, and we're still praying that it can grow even bigger to kind of what we're doing at FIU. So mainly at FIU and the U, and MDC is a community college. It's a community school. It's pretty big. We haven't had as much presence there, but we would like to. We're trying to figure out what that's going to look like. But those are the 3 major campuses.
Okay, so FIU, Florida International, is that a private school, public?
Yeah, it's a public school.
Okay, and then how many students? What's the population?
There are about 56,000, 57,000 students. Maybe about 6,000 of them live on campus. And so it's a majority commuter school. And there are multiple campuses. There's one in the north, and the main campus is in the south.
Okay.
That's where we're at.
And that's where we're at.
Okay, so Okay, a lot of questions I want to dig into here. First off, with multiple campuses, how do you stay focused? I mean, that's the challenge. Is like, okay, you've got the University of Miami, you've got Florida International, but Florida International has multiple campuses. So how do you guys spend your time for maximum impact?
Yeah, so where I went to school was FIU, and that's where I was a main intern at FIU. That's where I mainly interned. So that's where we built first, and that was, I'd say our FIU group is more of the model, and to which we're trying to build at and Miami-Dade College. Miami-Dade College is mainly a 2-year school. It's 4-year now, but people usually move after 2 years after they get their AA, and they'll come to FIU or they'll go to or they'll move somewhere else. But our main focus has been FIU for years now. There's so many students there. Sometimes we'd go on we'd try to reach out to people. We didn't have a great presence there. And then there'll be so many Bible studies at FIU that we would just really focus on FIU.
Got it.
And then once we got to about maybe 50 students or so, that's where we really started focusing a little bit more on and that's where we're at now to a certain extent. We're really trying to build up University of Miami, and luckily we have some interns. So we have 2 interns focused on and for us, we probably hit once or twice a week, and we're on FIU 2 or 3 times a week. Just making sure that the ministry is healthy, that we're connected, that we're in Bible studies, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think what's cool about it is FIU is the model, but the students are really excited to see what we're doing at FIU happen at So
right.
It's great to have a place where you can get inspiration. When you're a small group, it can be a little discouraging. You're going on campus, there's thousands of students. It can seem overwhelming. But when you see that it can be done, it really brings like a fire to that group at of like, yeah, we want this. This is possible. And I think if you're, in a smaller ministry, finding a ministry that you can aspire to be like and learn from can really go a long way.
And we also I just want to add this real quick. We also try to make sure that we all understand that it's one ministry. So the only time we're not one ministry is when is playing FIU in some sport or they're playing against each other. That's the only time.
That's the only time.
And even us, we're like, come on, go team. We can't pick a side. But that's really the only time. But we really try to make sure any weirdness in any way, we're like, guys, we're one ministry. We love Jesus, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's, I'd say kind of our next step is maybe really getting into the Miami-Dade College, focusing there as well. So
Okay. So one of the things you mentioned in our pre-interview is the 5 F's. Can you talk a little bit about your ministry philosophy and the 5 F's?
Yeah, you want me?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we have what we call the 5 F's. It's really from Leke. I don't know where he got it, but I can tell you what they are. We have 5 F's, so it kind of build the culture of our campus ministry. And everybody who comes through our ministry knows these 5 F's. It's kind of funny, but it's faith, follow-up, focus, family,
and fun, baby.
Fun. I said fun.
Oh, I don't know. Faith, focus, family, follow-up, and fun.
So yeah, the 5 F's kind of help us focus on everything else that we do as a ministry. So for example, fun is something that we want to be a part of everything we do. So if it's a midweek, if it's just a Bible talk, if it's just time being spent together with brothers and sisters, we want it to be fun. We want people to look at our ministry and see, man, this is a fun ministry. And so we do different stuff to try to make it fun. We do things that we want to be a part of, we're excited about. We would want to tell our friends, hey, come join the fun. And we follow up, I think, is a big thing too. Following up, with people. We spend a lot of time evangelizing on campus and reaching out, and we want to follow up with people. We want them to know what's going on. And I think that that goes a long way as well. And following up with disciples, following up with our brothers and sisters, seeing how they're doing. We go through a lot through 1 week, and we want to follow up with each other. Those are kind of two that stand out to me, but you can share the other ones.
Yeah. So before the semester starts, we have a training day, and we talk about how it's not like the movie Training Day. And so it's very much, we're teaching about the culture of the ministry and our campaign week. The first 2 weeks of school, we do a bunch of different events. Our goal is to try to get as many numbers as possible and to have fun events on campus, midweek on campus, so on and so forth, to reach as many people as possible. And then from those 2 weeks, we see a lot of people start studying the Bible, or we start creating friendships and so on and so forth. So that's part of how we start talking about the 5 F's. Then maybe towards the middle of the semester, we have a Devo, either a doctrine Devo or, a family, we call it Family Matters. We talk about Jesus, and then we talk about things that as a ministry we could focus on, we could improve on, we could grow in, and we'll throw in the 5 F's there. So when we talk about faith, Hebrews 11 says it's impossible to please God without faith. So we are very much focused on, hey, we have a lot of fun, but the reason we're here is because of Jesus.
Right.
We're not just a club.
Right.
We are the pillar of truth, the Bible says. So faith, we talk about family, building family, and we have a diverse family and people from different cultures, backgrounds, so on and so forth. So we really hit on making sure that we're a family, what it looks like to be encouraging family, not a discouraging family. Because sometimes when you get a bunch of young people together, they start building friendships, and then they start saying things that they probably isn't uplifting. So we talk a lot about that. Focus. There's a focus there's a focus to every single meeting of the body, to what we're doing. What's the purpose of Bible talk? To help people become Christians, and we're trying to reach people. So it shouldn't just be a holy huddle. What's the purpose for devotional? To build family. What's the focus for midweek? To reach non-disciples, because we have it on campus, and to teach Christian living. What's the purpose of Sunday? For worship. So we really try to help people focus on, hey, there is a focus to what we're doing.
Right.
And it helps us so that we always get our hearts right to, doing and going and trying to build up the ministry. And then the follow-up, we talk about discipling. And then the fun. One of my favorites is just having a lot of fun. And what I, maybe about 10 years ago when I was an intern, I'm like, man, all these fraternities, sororities, they talk a lot about fun, but it's kind of a dead end after 2 years. And so we saw a lot of, sorority and fraternity guys and girls, or not a lot, but some of them study the Bible sophomore year. And they're like, I kind of had the quote unquote fun freshman year, and my grades tanked, and it just wasn't fulfilling. So I thought, man, how could we just have a fun ministry? Hey, let's do some of the things that not sororities and fraternities do, but some of the things that could really bring people out. So we just try to have a lot of fun events and use whatever strength there is in the ministry. So I like playing basketball. I played in college. So we helped a lot of guys that play basketball become Christians. So,
right.
And that just builds kind of another community. So yeah, those are kind of our 5 F's, and we continuously talk about those.
Felipe, Marias, and I were out sharing on campus yesterday, and I said, hey, let's go share by the sports complex, the stadium, and then there's also the basketball center. And I said, let's try to reach out to an athlete. And so what do you know? Boom. Go out there and run into a guy who's on the defensive line at the University of Arizona, the football team. And he said, man, I'm looking for a church. There's some buddies on the team that are looking for a church. And, when do you guys meet? This is great. I've talked to the coach about this. And we were pumped. I mean, we were like, okay, this is an answer to prayer. What advice would you give to people who are trying to reach student athletes?
So one thing is, it depends on which school you're at. Maybe there's a chaplain that's, a part of your school, or maybe that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to become a chaplain for maybe a football team, or just on campus, so I could get kind of some of the benefits from being on campus. I already do, because I already graduated from FIU, so I'm an alumni, but on other campuses, I'm not. But sometimes these athletes, they have chaplains that are just kind of inspirational speakers. They don't really talk about the depth of the scriptures and so on and so forth. So one of the things is, don't be afraid to really call people to the standard that the Bible calls us to. There's no special treatment for someone who plays a sport or could throw a ball. And that's what happened with me. They showed me scriptures, and I was called higher, and I was encouraged. I was inspired. The other thing is, in terms of evangelizing, just kind of what you guys did, just being bold and going out there, but also knowing that these athletes, they have a lot, their schedule is really busy.
Right, exactly.
And they have a lot going on, and they're required to be at certain things. Right. And I was on scholarship, so I was required to be there and do certain things and so on and so forth. So being very flexible with them on their, on their schedules.
Right.
We had a girl, she's an Olympian now. Her name's Christina Knott. She ran at and there were certain times where she wasn't able to make certain things, but I definitely try to make sure that she was connected, that she was solid, that she was being reached out to. And yeah, maybe you have some thoughts, Mike.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the word that I thought too is flexibility. Not that you lower the standard, but that there's an understanding of these students are there probably on scholarship playing sports, so they have to be committed to these things, right? But to show them the standard of how can that happen in your life with the schedule you have, right? And I think one of the key things that we've seen to student athletes who have been successful and faithful to God in college has been relationships. If people have relationships, we see that their life is bearing the fruits, because they have people that they're talking through things, even if they're not able to make all the meetings of the body. If they see that these other people's lives, they see the fruit and they see what's happening, and they see how to do, basically they're walking with people and they see it lived out. And so they have these examples, even though they're constantly seeing the opposite, maybe, in the environment that they can be in. And so I think they need a lot of relationships, to be successful and to be inspired, because they can have great influence in the sport that they're playing in. There's a lot of people that I'm sure are searching in that we can't reach ourselves, not being athletes, but that they can, but they need a lot of relationships and support.
Right.
And during the off season is when, so if you're playing football, during the day is really when they grind. They really don't have much at night unless they have a game. So a lot of the athletes, football players, basketball players, they could make it, or track athletes, they could make it to midweeks where we had at night. But maybe like a Friday night, they're traveling, they can't make it to Devo. Makes sense. But one thing that has also helped has been maybe having someone that can relate as an athlete, that they could talk to, that they're connected to, or whatever. So I think those things.
Right. No, that's super helpful. I mean, one of the things I talked to him about, I said, listen, if this time doesn't work for you, we can work out a special service for you and your friends. If you want to worship together, we can put together essentially a custom church service. I think that, I hear what you're saying about the flexibility, having a high standard, but being flexible, because it's like a full-time job. I mean, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. It's a different world with unique challenges and temptations. So Definitely a unique situation. I want to talk a little bit about Kingdom Kids. So, how do you integrate Kingdom Kids with people that you meet and baptize off the street? How do you develop one culture with one standard?
Yeah, so
This is
I
Leke's favorite.
Okay, why are you laughing there, Marielos?
We've discussed this a lot.
Yeah, I'm there. I don't know. I'm not fully in favor of the word kingdom kids.
Okay.
There is a reality that you grew up in the church and so on and so forth, but so many people are so different. We've had a lot of kids who grew up in different churches come, or even our fellowship of churches come to, our ministry, and some of them have done amazing, and some of them have not done so well when they're called to really be a Christian, or even they kind of came like, I don't know where I'm at, but I think we're laughing because most of our ministry,
80 to 90% of our ministry are Gentile conversions,
not kingdom kids.
not Kingdom Kids.
So
We have a handful of Kingdom Kids.
right, but some of the people that are coming from are becoming disciples are coming from other churches. So they kind of are churchy kids as well. But one of the things, but I think there is a difference in with some of the kids that are coming from our fellowship of churches, the connectedness that they have, the culture that they were a part of. So again, I think we really try to stress what we're about and who we are. That this is what the ministry is like. These are kind of the expectations for the ministry, and all of it is washed with the word, and very much about nothing forceful, nothing weird. I don't like that. I don't like forceful. I don't like weird. I like biblical, kingdom-centered kind of teaching, and that's the standard for everyone. And I think having a solid discipling is also one of the things that I've seen have worked well with kids that have gone to have kingdom kids that have come from, I'm even struggling saying the word, but it's a reality. But yeah, I think the standard, teaching the standard early on, as well as kind of teaching and making sure that they're getting solid discipling and what that means and so on. And can I say two more things? All right, cool. The other thing that I've seen is some of them have to kind of, I wouldn't say restudy the Bible, but reaffirm certain convictions, because we really strive to have everyone, what we say is, hey, we want everyone in the ministry to be in at least 2 Bible studies, one you can lead and one you can learn from. So some of these kingdom kids come in and they don't really know how to study the Bible with people, or they think they do, but they don't really know how to lead one. They've been in studies, but they don't know how to lead. So we really try to encourage them, hey, learn the scriptures and so on and so forth. And, you can really help more people become Christians. Yeah, you could go.
Yeah, I was going to share a little bit of, growing up, I was a kingdom kid, and when I came to Miami, though I had been doing ministry, I think at that point, 7 or 8 years in Arizona, I moved, and it was such a shock, a culture shock to me, to be honest, of the excitement and zeal that somebody who had come straight out of the world, I had made Jesus Lord, versus somebody who had been around that for quite some time. You've seen kind of, if you grow up in the church, you kind of get used to that, I don't know, the culture of being a follower of Jesus.
Right.
And somebody who's not used to that is really excited because it's brand new. And then they come to a family that has that as well. And so it was a little bit, I would say it convicted me for my zeal and my excitement, because I felt like, man, maybe I've gotten comfortable
right.
in the grace that has been shown to me and the blessing of what it means to have a family of believers that want to do the same thing and have the same goal in mind. And so I think for some who grew up in our churches, it can be shocking. And to that, I would just say, learn from those that are fresh in that way. And again, the Bible talks about this when the Jews and the Gentiles came together, try to figure things out. There's going to be bumps along the way. And I'm grateful because I think Leke does a great job of, let's look at what the scriptures teach, what should the standard be. So the standard doesn't really change despite where you're coming from, which is really awesome. It kind of clarifies for us any differences that we would have in thinking about things. So yeah, that's kind of what I would add.
Yeah, and we have amazing Kingdom kids that grew up in different parts of the country, and they've come to Miami, and they're doing awesome. Some of the kids from Boston, some of the kids from churches in California, some of the kids in Florida. So yeah, I think they've a lot of them have done really well.
Right. Well, there's unique challenges there. I mean, every kid comes from a different background. It could be that their parents were not doing that well spiritually. It could be that their parents were affected by different situations in the church and are, that bleeds into their lives. And so there can be entitlement, there can be criticism, there can be all sorts of things that are coming along with the student into a new situation. So, okay, let's keep talking here. I want to talk about you guys. You guys have been on campus now. You guys have been disciples a little over 10 years now. How do you stay motivated? How do you stay fired up? Now you've got a kid. You've got a 4-month-old. And, how do you keep, and you've been at Florida International for a long time, Leke. How do you keep the fire burning? You go, okay, here's just one more year. Here I am. How do you keep the fire burning to go, okay, this is going to be an awesome year, versus just like, okay, we're just going to, connect the dots. It's going to be a good year. We're going to baptize 25 and have just kind of a journeyman mindset versus like inspired.
Yeah. So because there are several. That's a great question. There are several kind of things that just ran through my mind. One of them is what I teach incessantly is never mix up your purpose and your mission. For me, sometimes I even kind of ask, hey guys, what's our purpose in life? And sometimes people shout out, make disciples. And I'm like, no, our purpose in life is to love God and to know God and to be close to God. So for me, I always want to see everything through that lens, that my purpose is God, that John 17:3, eternal life is to know God and to know Jesus. Luke 10:20, that our names are written in heaven. Colossians 1, we were created by him and for him. So when I get to leaders, they ask me to, teach lessons to leaders. That's what I try to teach all the time. Never mix up your purpose, which is to know God, and your mission, which is to help others know God. So the mission becomes fun because now I'm just telling them about my father. Now I'm telling them about my dad, God, and while trying to do something fun, playing basketball or reaching out with a young Christian or something like that. So for me, that's kind of one of the things that I try to meditate on a lot. I don't want to get my worth from success or anything besides Jesus. And I really try to focus on that. And so I spend time praying, reading my Bible, trying to make sure that I'm close to God. I don't want my Christianity to be fake. I don't want it to be based on the ministry, who's doing well, who's not doing well, so on and so forth. I don't want to be anxious about those things. I very much want to be close to God. So I talk a lot about that, never mixing up your purpose and your mission. The other thing I thought about was that, although we see people become Christians, we're really not reaching as many people as I think we could.
Right.
So that excites me every semester, that there's so many kids on campus that are being pulled away by false teaching. There's so many people that I heard Jameson Malcolm say, he's a minister in the Philly area. I heard him say, I went to a graduation and I saw all these names pass by of people that we never reached. And I was like, whoo, that even gave me goosebumps as I said that, and I just think, man, there's so many people that we're not reaching. So, seeing 10, 15 people become Christians, I'm like, man, God, do greater things.
Exactly.
Use us in greater ways.
Exactly.
So I think things like that really inspire me. I think false doctrine inspires me. There's so much false doctrine out there that we're like, we got to teach the truth. Let's go.
Right.
So, because I grew up believing I was a Christian and I just didn't know. I was taught the sinner's prayer. And then when I encountered what the Bible said about becoming a Christian as a sophomore, I was sad that there were so many people that didn't know about just even repentance or baptism correctly.
Exactly.
So those are kind of the three things that probably popped up in my mind right away.
Yeah. There's so many things I could say. I think minister's life, your own personal life is the key. Like I said, I think if I'm not filled by God and inspired and my faith is growing, whatever I do for ministry becomes kind of just, it becomes hard. It becomes difficult, discouraging. So I think our personal walks, I'm constantly trying to learn what it means to be poor in spirit, be desperate for God. I think that posture, when I really feel my need for God, it makes me want other people to have God more. I think remembering the grace that has been shown to me, I think constantly reflecting on that, praying about that. I think being in touch with my sin, I think helps me. I think knowing that I'm never gonna be perfect, so I'm constantly gonna be in need of being more like Christ. I think gives me a gratitude for my salvation, and I think that motivates me as I encounter different situations on campus to be like, wow, like I want you to have this gift that I have, and I think something Leke says, or he heard it from somebody, but he says it. I think when you're discouraged, get encouraged quickly. And that is something that has helped me a lot, because in ministry, you're going to encounter a lot of discouragement, and maybe you're just planting seeds that you're not going to see grow for years and years to come. And that can be frustrating. But what's cool is when we get our encouragement from the scriptures, we see the big picture of what we're doing. And I think that helps a lot too, to know I'm just a part of the process.
Right.
I don't know what part I'm going to be in. Yes, people becoming Christians is incredible. It's inspiring, but that's not the end. That's not everything.
Right.
There's more that we're doing. There's work that we're doing that is bearing fruit in people's lives. And, years later, we have people come to us and be like, thank you for that conversation. I was at the conference and a girl came up to me and she said, thank you for this conversation we had about, 5 years ago. And honestly, I didn't fully remember the conversation, but she said it changed my life. And I'm so grateful,
That's right.
We don't know, what we're doing. And so I think personally, your own walk with God, having people that walk with you and inspire you as well. We have a couple of the Reyes, John and Sylvie Reyes. Honestly, they're in, I don't know if I should say their age. They're older, but they're missionaries at heart.
They're young compared to Jesus.
They're young compared to Jesus. They moved down to the area we're living in. We're trying to do kind of a church plant down in the city that we're at, and they moved from their home so that they could be around the neighborhood and make disciples down here. And there's just so many things in their life that I'm inspired by. So I would say having people that you can go to, and also that we tell them everything that we're feeling and we're going through in our marriage, as we're figuring out what it means to be parents and get no sleep. They sit with us. They help us work through conflict. I think that has been a huge, huge blessing in doing. It's having a couple that inspires.
That's a lot of stuff there. That's great. So when you get discouraged, get encouraged quickly. Get people in your life who can help you to shepherd you. That's fantastic. To make sure and watch your life, that you stay inspired, by the grace of God. Marielos, you recently finished a master's. Were you motivated by, like, what motivated you to go, hey, I'm going to go get a master's?
I laugh because it was very difficult. But I think what motivated me initially, so I had been doing campus ministry since I was a junior in college. I was on as an intern and then kind of went to the full-time ministry when I graduated. And as I was studying the Bible with women, I think the consistent thing that I felt like I would hit a wall with was when it came to mental health. I didn't know how to walk with somebody spiritually and just emotionally and psychologically through that and see them have just victory. And so many situations where suicidal ideation, eating disorders, addictions, just so many heartbreaking things that I knew God had the power to redeem us from. I just didn't know how to guide somebody towards that. And so I actually got my master's at Phoenix Seminary because I wanted the biblical side of psychology and understanding how that goes with scripture. And that was something that was really inspiring to see, was that psychology and scripture go hand in hand. Some of the theories that I would learn about, I actually knew through scripture.
Yeah.
There's like CBT talks about how you think is how you feel, and how you feel is how you act. That's repentance. If you change your mind,
right,
your life changes.
Exactly.
You know, and so it's just cool to see like these things. There's a lot of tools that I gained from the psychology perspective that I didn't have before. And I'm actually in the process right now in getting licensed in Florida. So I haven't been able to practice yet. But I think just the understanding of
right.
The education really helped me to feel more confident in guiding others.
Knowing what you know now about the program, the difficulty of it, would you do it again?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, so
yes.
you
I missed the difficulty of it because it really challenged me to grow, and I love to learn, but it was definitely a very difficult process.
So do you offer lessons for Leke and just give him some tutoring and stuff like that?
Actually, probably.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm the one kind of asking her a bunch of questions.
That's right. I bet.
Studying, I try to help her out, and I'm learning a lot. I'm like, oh, cool.
I know, that's really impressive. I mean, there's so many mental health issues these days. I mean, with the pandemic, I mean, just in general, it's a massive issue. You must be in high demand because of that, Marielos.
Yeah, I think there's a great need. I'm still learning what that's going to look like, how I can serve and meet those needs. So if you're listening to this, pray for me that God opens the door to know kind of what that can look like. Right. I think my passion would be just some kind of education for our churches and the tools that are available. I think just being educated about things can change so much.
Right.
So
right. It's powerful.
Who knows what God has planned for that.
One thing that stands out to me about you, Leke, in the little time we've spent together, is you seem like an extremely confident person. At the same time, you're willing to learn from people. And can you explain how do you stay confident and humble at the same time?
Man, I think there are. I think what you said, being a learner. I know that I have blind spots. I know that I have my limits. So I just like to learn. I like to learn things about psychology. I majored in sociology. So I like learning things about society. But yeah, I also think that we should be very confident as Christians because of what God has given us. You know, the scriptures talk about how Ephesians 1 talks a lot about who we are, our identity as Christians, and it should light a fire in us, you know, that, you know, God has blessed us. And not only that, he's with us. He's given us his spirit. The last word of Jesus in Matthew 28, he said, I'll be with you. So I think there's that. I think I'm also naturally an achiever. So I'm more of like, let's go, let's do. So it helps me want to accomplish things, but I also know that I don't know. So there are certain things that I don't know that I need to learn. So that excites me. I think sometimes there have been times where I get discouraged by the things I don't know. But one of my friends who actually said, if you're discouraged, get encouraged quickly, Steve LaFrance, he said, man, I'm inspired by some of the things that I don't know. And I thought, whoa, me too. Let's go. So, yeah, or the things that I need to grow in. So instead of being discouraged by that, I think I've thought of, man, that's exciting now.
Right.
So
I think that's,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like I said, I think my confidence, a lot of it is if I feel close to God, then I feel like I could run through a wall. So I try to make sure that I'm reading my Bible, praying, not even just for ministry, but just in life.
Absolutely.
In general. So.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just ask you this, like, with kids, okay, you've got a child now. How's that affected your ministry? Do you have any tips for campus ministers trying to do ministry with children? I mean, you might want advice yourself. I'm sure you do, but any advice on how to do that?
The small things I've learned so far. I think ask for help. I think at first, he was our first baby, newborn. We didn't even feel confident letting our mom,
right.
Watch him for a few hours. But as time went on, we got desperate. We're like, please take this baby. But I think even just so I went back, I was on maternity leave basically most of the summer, and then probably right before the WDS conference went back. And I went to campus with Micah, our son. He was, 2 months at that point. And I left campus crying because I was like, what am I going to do? I felt so incapable. I think I felt guilty that I felt incapable because I obviously have the blessing of a son, and I don't ever want that to feel like a burden.
Right.
And at the same time, I felt there was such a great need on campus,
right.
and I wanted to just run. I just wanted to go. I wanted to be in as many Bible studies and help these girls, walk with them, mentor them. And I remember that first day I sat in a discipling time with 2 of my girls, and he was crying, and then he needed to be changed. And then the girl in the discipling study in time was crying, and I just wanted to cry. And I was just like, what are we doing here? And then I went home and prayed, and I was like, God, I know that I felt capable before. I think you get to a certain place when you've been doing ministry long enough that you know how to do certain things well. But I don't know what I'm doing now, and I need your help. And so I think God has really given me a lot of confidence in him during this time that we're still learning. I think we went to campus this week and we're like, do you feel weird bringing, your baby on campus? I'm like, yeah, I think kids are staring at me and like, what is this student with a baby doing? Sometimes, right. Sometimes they're like, oh, you're a mom? Like, I didn't know you were that old. And I was like, thank you. Right. So we're just learning, and we're asking for help. There's different people in our life that we trust that we could leave him with for a few hours. Some of my girls, I did a training time yesterday. One of the girls in the middle of the training, he starts crying. She takes him and is carrying him for me and watching him for me. While I'm doing the training, I'm just learning that's okay. I need the help. He's going to come along with us until, he can't. And so, I would say those things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What are your dreams in the future? Where do you guys plan on going from here? You guys have led a successful campus ministry for a long time. You, Marielos, in Arizona, now in Florida. What do you guys dream about? Like, where would you like your lives to go? You going overseas, leading a church? What do you want to do? Keep leading campus ministry for the rest of your life? What are your thoughts?
Come on, campus or
Leke
never.
would want.
So I actually initially came to Miami because I wanted to be a missionary to Brazil. So I thought, man, I grew up in Brazil, and I know Portuguese. So I went to FIU to even better my Portuguese. They have a good Portuguese program. So that's the reason I came to Miami. But God didn't open up those doors, and so I've been here in Miami. I love it. Uh, we're excited about Miami. We want to stay here in Miami. We are very much, we're Evangelist Women's Ministry leaders, and we're leading part of the South of the Miami church. So we want to really build the church here, and we've tried to rebrand in certain ways. We're talking about bringing Christ to the community. So we really want to reach the community around us. And I'm excited I used to have a basketball company. It was called Baller on Purpose. Can't do it by mistake. You got to do it on purpose. And that was like a little branding. And I had some videos on Instagram, Baller on Purpose. You could check it out. And but really what I wanted to do with that was train younger kids and some of those who are on the margins, and be a mentor to them, have a mentorship program, use sports to mentor some of these kids who may not have fathers in the home, and or maybe just trying to figure life out. So I want to eventually do something with that, or go back to doing something with that, where I can have a athletic program that reaches our community, that helps young people believe in themselves, and also introduce God in there for them.
That's cool. So there's like an entrepreneurial aspect to kind of an interest or side hustle that you've got going.
Yeah, I did, but I don't really have time for it right now.
Right.
I used to train people, but maybe in the future I could see myself doing, or being that as an outlet in different ways.
Right.
I know, Madi, you say something.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking kind of our dreams for the future. I think we're living our dream in one sense.
Right.
I think something that we've been dreaming about for the state of Florida is we have the Miami School of Missions, which is training ministers for the next generation of ministers for the Caribbean, South America, and also for the state of Florida. I think that's a dream of ours, is to see there's many campuses around Florida, major universities that don't have full-time campus ministers. And we've seen some of those campuses dwindle down because of that. There's not the support there. So we were really excited. We were able to send out a couple. They got married and then the next week moved to Orlando and are helping with the campus there. And we just really want to see Florida's ministries, the college campuses, have what we have in Miami. We really believe the next generation can do that. And so Leke started kind of just with a prayer of that, and we've seen it in the last year come to fruition in a lot of ways. And we've I don't know how many students we have training right now. I think 13.
Yeah, in our school of missions.
In our school of missions, we have 13 students training right now.
That's awesome.
With some of them want to go into full-time ministry, some of them just vocationally are, wanting to get trained. But just to see that there are students who are excited and want to go into the ministry. So that's kind of one of the dreams that we maybe in the next couple of years will see come to life.
So you want to see college students go and have campus ministries on all the campuses in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many in Florida. It's crazy. I mean, and they're all on massive football programs and stuff like that. You see them on TV all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them have them. Like Gainesville has an awesome ministry,
right?
And Orlando, and some of them already have full-time ministries, which is awesome. And we just want to reach. Want to reach them all.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the pandemic, not all of our campus ministries were open, like the campuses were open. So some of our ministries took a massive hit. Even FIU took a hit, and UM was more open than FIU. So we just were kind of refocused on UM.
Got it.
So I think it's a revival, rebuilding time right now. And we're excited for the next 10 years. Our goal is that we could raise up and send out at least 50, missionaries or ministers, 50 and 10 in the next 10 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
From our program. And yeah, so, I think our campus ministries in the country right now, we're in a rebuilding, and it's an exciting time because a lot of young people have been raised up, have said, "Here am I, send me," and they're fresh. So I'm really excited to see what God's going to do.
That's great. You guys, you strike me as such a talented couple. I mean, you have so much going for you. You've got great experience. You've done amazing things in the ministry. Let me ask you this question: how do you stay on guard? Like when you think about Satan going after you guys, what are you careful about? You go, okay, I got to be careful about this area that he doesn't take us out. Like what if there were one strategy he would use to take you out? What do you have to be careful of?
Wow, that's a great question. I have to think about that one.
I can go.
Yeah.
It's funny because I actually pray that daily. That God would protect our faith,
right?
And in the faith of our ministry, our students. Because I do think that if you go out, if Satan reaches into your faith, a lot of things could fall apart. I think for me, what I've seen in the last 2 years during the pandemic was kind of this idea of cynicism in my faith. I think that I lost the wonder and the just having a childlike heart that God can do anything. I think I once that wonder is gone, I think it can be very hard to trust God. And so I think for me, Satan can attack that part of me that, trust in God's ability to do anything.
Right. Right.
So I pray. I read a really amazing book called The Praying Life, and that really helped me to get out of that, because I felt everything just felt like, well, things are going to fall apart anyway. This isn't working. Just very apathetic and cynical about life. So I think learning to have a childlike heart again and
right.
trusting that God, and I really believe God has blessed that in this coming school year. I feel like I'm in a different place with my faith of knowing, all these bad things could happen, and a lot of things happened during COVID, right. And a lot of hurts and different things, but God's still able.
Exactly.
So I'm learning to pray that daily.
I love that. I just not losing the wonder, the power of God, your idealism. And that's, it's something that's been on my mind a lot recently because I've lost friends who've drifted away or, just kind of, they're not in the same place they were for sure, a few decades ago. And it's so sad to me. And I go, okay, Rob, what's Satan going to do? What's his attack? And I think that's important. Protect your faith and keep your idealism and don't lose your sense of, I wouldn't say childish, but at least childlike faith in God and a trust that he can do miracles. How about for you, Leke? Where do you have to be on guard?
Yeah, I think I'm very much about faith. I tell certain people that I'm like, man, I really believe. I'm very optimistic. But I think one of the things that I like to say is that I seek to be optimistic, but I also seek to be realistic. And I know that the Bible says that, in in the Lord's Prayer that, protect us from the evil one. So I really pray that on a daily basis. God, may you protect us. John 17 kind of says the same thing: protect them from the evil one, and lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. So I pray for that. That's what the Lord's Prayer says.
Right.
But I think I try to take the carpe diem route, seize the day. Every single day, I try to make sure that I'm praying 2 or 3 or 4 things. Right. That I pray Matthew 5:3, that I'm poor in spirit, that Matthew 5:8, that I'm pure in heart, and that Hebrews 3:7 and 8, that I listen to the Holy Spirit today. Today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts, as they did in the rebellion during the time of testing in the wilderness. So I try to pray those 3 things, and I have a list called the Today list, where I have my today scriptures, focus every day. I have purity passages. I have a to-do list, and so on. So I call it my today list, and so I try to focus every single day on being aware. I'm optimistic, but I try to be very aware that Satan is trying to steal our faith, that he's trying to pull us away. And right. I think honestly, as a that's all what I said may sound good and like, oh, cool. Yeah. But one of the realities is, before I was married, I led the ministry without a sister leading with me for several years. And I think just making sure that you're pure. Before I was a Christian, I wasn't always pure. Obviously, I wasn't at all. But I don't even know if that's a laughing matter. But I wasn't a pure man. But becoming a Christian, sorry, we have to grab the charger here. But becoming a Christian, I know I've sought to really strive to be pure, just with my motives and everything, but also sexually. And so I've, before being married, dating, I knew that one way Satan could take me out is in my purity, being either dishonest, because I wasn't always honest before I was a Christian, and also with women, and from the world, or flirting, or whatever it may be. So I sought to be the total opposite from that. Maybe, I don't even want to say a little too much, but just very much like, I don't even want you to think that I'm flirting. I don't want to, I just want to be pure. I want to be pure hearted. And I try to be funny, sometimes I'll, throw things in there. Like I went to a conference and I was going to speak at it. So we were doing a pre-meeting and I was speaking. I said, my name is Leke, I'm 27 and I'm single. Amen, sisters. And, and that's kind of what happened. One of the sisters like opened up her mouth. She's like, oh, no way. But I try to have fun, but I really saw, because, there are beautiful women on campus, beautiful girls in the ministry. And it's so easy and you're leading it. It's so easy to try to just not be holy.
Exactly.
So prior to me getting engaged, being married, I very much value purity, and I value it even more now.
That's awesome.
So,
okay. Yeah. So let me ask you this final question. What advice would you give to a person who wants to make this life count?
Use what God has given you for the glory of God. Learn. I think you have fun with the talents that God has blessed you with, using it for His glory. And seize the day. Try to glorify God every single day. And that means that you got to pray about it every single day. And not everything's going to be perfect, but definitely use your talents for God's glory, and learn new talents. I think that those things excite me, and it makes me feel fulfilled in many ways, rather than looking on Instagram
Right.
and being jealous of people or pursuing money at, but in exponential ways, but really, seizing the day, using your talents.
That's
for the
awesome.
glory of God.
How about you, Mari?
I would say it's funny. I think Francis Chan says this, but keeping eternity in mind, I think helps put things into perspective. He wrote a really awesome book, You and Me Forever, that talks about like just the purpose of marriage, but that there's a bigger picture than that. And I think when we keep the bigger picture, eternity in mind, everything else goes into perspective. Our emotions go into perspective. We may have a hard day, but we get to be with Jesus forever. So, or, whatever may come in our life, there's a bigger picture. And I think that's where scriptures talk about holding on to the hope we have,
Right.
Knowing that there's more
Right.
than what we see in this life hasn't been redeemed.
Right.
At one point it will be, and that'll be worth it. And
Right.
so I would say making the most of keeping that on your mind.
That's great. You guys, thank you so much for this time together. I'm so inspired by what you're doing. It's a real pleasure to get to know you a little bit better. And for you, Leke, this is really our first time to talk. And I'll be praying for your work there in Florida and for the work to get 50 missionaries out in the next 10 years. I love the way you're thinking. I've got my own 2030 plan that I'm just going after. I'm praying to plant 10 or more churches by 2030, and so I'm really that's my plan. Want to see it happen. We got a church out last year in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we just want to keep on churning it out. Just keep it going. So, all the best to you guys going forward.
Thanks so much. We'll be praying for you as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're inspired.
Thank you so much for joining the Rob Skinner podcast. If you're enjoying this podcast, please hit the subscribe button and let your friends know about it and how to find it. Because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.